Hey guys, Rafi here from the Endgame Investor. Find me on Seeking Alpha under the pen name AustroLib. Today I want to talk about one sitting member of the Federal Open Market Committee, that group of geniuses that decides how much money there should be in the monetary system. His name is Rafael Bostic. We share a first name, and that's wonderful. He is the head of the Atlanta Fed. He gave a speech on October 12th, today is October 14th, on the outlook for inflation. And he has gone rogue. Rafael Bostic does not believe in transitory inflation. In fact, he called transitory a swear word. He put a jar on the table labeled transitory and said that for his staff, every time the word transitory is mentioned, they have to put $1 in the jar. So he put that jar there, and every time he said the word transitory in a speech, he put $1, a Federal Reserve note, in that jar.
Now you'll notice that I brought a prop to the lectern. And in case you can't see it clearly, it's a jar with the word transitory written on it. Over the past few months, this has become something of a swear word to my staff and me. Say the word transitory, and you have to put $1 in the jar.
$1. Thanks, mister.
Isn't that cute? A Federal Reserve official trying to be funny. Rafael Bostic does not believe that current price inflation or rising consumer prices is transitory. He has openly said that supply chain disruptions are going to make rising prices more permanent.
It is becoming increasingly clear that the feature of this episode that is animated price pressures, mainly the intense and widespread supply chain disruptions, will not be brief. Data from multiple sources point to these lasting longer than most initially thought. And by this definition, then, the forces are not transitory.
If supply chain disruptions are what are pushing prices up, according to Bostic, not according to me, which I'll get into in a minute, then a taper of the Fed's bond buying program from $120 billion to say 110 or even $100 billion is not going to stop rising prices because it's not going to stop supply chain disruptions. Either the Fed does taper and the CPI continues to spiral out of control, or the Fed doesn't taper and the market figures out that it never will. So either the Fed tries to put price inflation back in the jar and fails, or they never try. One of those two possibilities will spiral metals prices much higher. So why is Bostic wrong when he says that supply chain disruptions are what's causing rising consumer prices? He's got it ass backwards.
Why didn't somebody tell me my ass was so big?
Because it's the other way around. Rising consumer prices are what are causing the supply chain disruptions, which in turn cause even higher consumer prices. In a normal, sound money economy, what happens is if demand goes up for goods and services, that is because that demand is coming from added supply on the working side, on the production side. The added production increases efficiency, allowing firms that produce things to meet that higher demand. Supply goes up, prices stay more or less stable, the economy grows, and people get richer. In an inflationary economy, increased demand doesn't come from increased production and increased savings. Increased demand comes from an increase in the money supply, which in turn increases the cost of production, making it impossible for the marginal firms to meet demand at rising costs because it's not profitable for them. So they shut down and they go bankrupt, which is what happens. And then you have constricting supply in the face of climbing demand, which pushes prices higher even faster. So it's not that supply chain disruptions are causing rising prices. It's that rising production costs are causing supply chain disruptions themselves, which are pushing prices even higher. This is a positive feedback loop that Bostic doesn't recognize, because he doesn't recognize, nor does anybody in the Federal Reserve recognize, that currency, money substitutes, can lose value, and they can lose value very quickly, even though this has happened hundreds of times in history. They don't recognize it as a valid historical phenomenon, and they can't explain it. Or even if they could explain it, they'll say that the dollar and the euro and the yen or whatever are so awesome that they cannot possibly get destroyed in a hyperinflationary event. But of course, they can, and they will. If you haven't tried a 2-week free trial of the Endgame Investor, please click below on the link, and you'll enjoy what I write every day to my subscribers and how I explain things and add in interesting backstories. This is Rafi of the Endgame Investor saying, transitory.